Great. We've had a bunch of audience questions come in, and well, I first had a question to start us off on this conversation. And we've heard a lot of different strategies, options for cities. And the question I have is, how do we, hearing all of that, how do we accelerate our transition away from fossil fuels and avoiding investing in stranded gas appliances, and also not leave anyone behind? So how can we move quickly and also in an equitable way? Is there anyone who wants to start with that big question too? And Carmelita, if you could come back on the panel too, that'd be great.
Yeah, I could sort of launch this off. Yeah, I know. I think really sort of at a high level, making sure that this transition is touching upon the triple bottom line, and that it is equitable and beneficial from, of course, a social, an economic, and ecological perspective. And really that this transition should go hand in hand with an equitable and sustainable future, with a cultural change driven by education to help speed up this process is really going to be fundamental. Reaching audiences that we haven't reached before, really helping to debunk myths and clarify things that will help make this transition just more streamlined and easy to understand, and also help reducing that barrier to cost. So really innovating financing for improved energy efficiency in buildings. It's already powering economic growth to some degree, but really stepping up and expanding that scope of policies to get investment to the flow, I think is, combined with all of these factors, it's education, it's financing, it's ensuring that this is done from a just transition that has the opportunity to cover multiple benefits, multiple areas, not just, of course, sort of the climate crisis, but also that touches upon social injustice, equity, as well as the pandemic. And combining all these factors is the way to go about this.
Thank you, Alyssa. And kind of highlighting that not only having the policy, but the education, the financing, all of the resources to move it along together. Carmelita, would you like to share your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, apologies. I hope your audio is okay on my end. And
I can hear you great.
Internet. Yeah, I think it's me. Okay. So in addition to that, to Alyssa said, I want to add that to also zoom out. I know I stand by the statements I made earlier that local jurisdictions have a critical role to play. And part of that is also having a zoomed out understanding that decarbonizing our economy impacts the entire state, right? So reach codes or specific local policies that ban gas will have an impact on the overall system. And what is that, right? What does that look like, and how are you all communicating to each other as the audience members here? With acknowledgement that electrification, which will lead to decarbonization, which hopefully will lead to less and less need for fossil fuels, that impacts y'all, like each other, like cities. There's this connectedness. From the resident side, that impact is going to be felt through like 3 years from now, when we do the general rate cases to determine our rates. So this could look like, gas rates going up less because there are less people on it, electric rates going up for many, many other reasons. It could impact customers or residents. And again, if there is a failure to address the preservation of housing affordability. So yes, focus on what it is that you can do in your own communities, but also with the acknowledgement and understanding that this has to be part of a bigger push that includes entire state, that includes other cities, without losing the sight that this is centered on the residents who will eventually will shoulder the impacts no matter what.
Thank you, Carmelita. Any thoughts from Missy or Katie?
I would just second Carmelita's earlier statement about there not being a choice. It's a false choice that you're either completely electrifying or you're part of the problem, for example. I think there are roles for everybody that we can all contribute and that we all need to contribute, and not just, you know, from the individual level to the state and federal level as well. So there are roles and contributions we can all make.
Yeah, and I would just say, you know, I think the approach that we took with our work was we thought we went into this report thinking we would come out saying we need to electrify everything as quickly as possible. And based on all of the community outreach that we did, we realized that we need to take a step back and slow down a little bit to bring everyone up together, because the only way we're really going to electrify our communities equitably is if everyone can do it together in an affordable way. So that's the approach that we took. And in terms of things that we can start doing, I mean, on a local level, like local governments, we need to start the community engagement now. You can never start that too early, and it's going to be a long-term, you know, relationship building. And there's also collective actions that we can make. And so, you know, in order for these big policy ideas, these big changes to happen, we're going to need these things that Alyssa was talking about too. You know, we need the education. We need truly accessible financing and funding options so everyone can afford to do this, because not everyone can afford to do this now. And we need regulatory changes to make it easier for people to do that. And so some of the collective action things that we can do as cities, organizations, is advocate for accessible funding and financing programs, advocating for equitable utility rates, including whatever happens with NEM 3.0. I know we're all watching it, and advocating for utility accounting and planning reform. So I think these are all things that we can start doing now to lay the groundwork so that we can accelerate the electrification in the future.
Thanks everyone for sharing your thoughts on that question. I next have a question from the audience specifically about leveraging existing weatherization programs. And perhaps this is a question that Missy, you might have some thoughts on, but the question is anyone thinking about how we might leverage the existing weatherization program to promote all electric upgrades? This would require changing the federal rules that govern the measures that can be installed with weatherization funds. And we'd probably want to advocate for larger expenditures per project. Could also reach more people if eligibility requirements were modified to allow more moderate income property owners. I'm wondering, Missy, is that something that is, you know, I don't know, perhaps like—
Sorry, I'm not involved in the program at all. I'm sorry. I think that
No
one of the city
it's
folks might have a better handle on that.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
We can move on. Anyone have thoughts on that question, or we can leave that for—
I would say heck yes. I think that question already had a lot of answers in it. There are very, you know, the statewide programs. Sorry, the energy efficiency nerd is going to come out as in my previous life. Yes, we should not think about electrifying existing homes without thinking about a holistic approach that doesn't address unhealthy sources of unhealthy and unsafe you know, structural issues, right? Like it has to include energy efficiency. It has to include deep weatherization and making the home intact and healthy. On top of the many other issues that's getting brought up in chat that I'm seeing, like about financing. But again, as an advocate for communities, that's what I'm focusing on is focusing on programs that are not punitive towards residents. So not adopting any policies that will disincentivize, let's say, affordable energy efficiency benefits because it's coming from gas, without without an alternative that will make up for or provide additional benefits. My point is, yes, there are many, many programs. It's not just energy efficiency that are both local and state. Some of the answers can come from the unexpected places. It can come from a public health program. It can come from a transportation program. It can come from a pilot that we didn't know, but a specific local labor union is designing. It can come from many, many ways. And again, this is why I believe that cities and local jurisdictions are in the best position, because you would know. A statewide person, an advocate like me, wouldn't until if we ever complete data gathering on these types of questions.
Thank you. I want to move on to a next question that perhaps Katie and Alyssa might have thoughts on first. And the question is, what opportunities do you see moving forward, and who would you like to see get involved in gathering buy-in for electrification strategies and policies? How can we broaden our scope to those we haven't worked yet? So is there anyone you would really wish to see at the table, whether it's health organizations, private companies, other partners who can really accelerate and support the equitable transition? And others can chime in too if you want a moment to think about that.
No, I think earlier the Habitat for Humanity conversation, brought up a lot of issues that this is sort of a new angle that we should really work to approach, is particularly this health angle. Health, of course, affects everybody. I know sometimes climate issues are at distance to those, but gathering and using that as a major messaging point, I think is a great way to approach that. And I think definitely involving health officials, like for instance, I would love to be in partnership with Alameda County Department of Environmental Health and really working to help bridge and help educate the community about the health risks that are associated with using our current fossil fuel systems and infrastructure, and really driving it home that, this is not only impacting sort of your wallet, but personal health and livelihood, I think is a really great triggering point and point of motivation for others. And as well as seeking public and private partnerships when those arise. I think that's a great way to leverage funds and innovation, particularly when it comes to research and development. And I think that particularly as we're housed in the Bay Area, where there's a lot of innovation and technological advancements, I think that's something that could definitely be brought on board and something that we should all be definitely seeking out to partner with moving forward.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Thanks, Alyssa. I agree with what Alyssa said. I also think, what we've been trying to do a lot of work around is identifying who hasn't been at the table, who are the voices that we're not hearing from, who are the marginalized communities, and really making the effort to go seek them and listen to what their needs and priorities are. Because the only way we're going to scale these solutions is if we can find the ways that resonate with people, or people want to do this. And so I agree. I think health is a huge way of doing that. Another, sets of groups that we've been talking to are organizations that are already serving these communities. So nonprofits serving low-income communities, disadvantaged communities of all different kinds, connecting with them and trying to educate and bridge those organizations so they can integrate the benefits of electrification and understand the benefits of electrification. So when they're going out and doing their work, that's also an inroad to reach those people that aren't necessarily getting education in the other ways that we've already been trying. So those are some ideas.
Thank you. I think we're just about needing to move on. So I'll just ask one last question, maybe for Carmelita and Misty, just to wrap up. And is there one kind of next step that you would recommend for cities exploring some of these strategies and policies as a first simple next step that they could take?
I would say
Use the tool.
well, using the tool as a possibility, but investigating the savings in your area and what are the opportunities for people and beginning to learn about that and learning what the options are. I think that would be the best first step to take, is to identify the various opportunities.
Yes, same as what Misty said. We're investigating a certain area. I mean, we can't do all of the cities, but that's our approach, is we're investigating specific cities, communities, to determine what the benefits are. As I've said earlier, we're in a more messed up version of the housing and utility debt crisis. So if the value, what's the value proposition of electrifying your existing building stock, right? The value proposition to folks who are, again, have lost their jobs or barely finding a new job and starting, can't pay their bills, can't afford their rent. And you've seen what the Supreme Court has done, and the ways that the state is either moving to help or not moving to help the vulnerable populations. What is then the value add and the value proposition when you say, hey, do you want to talk to us about decarbonizing and electrifying the homes where you live? They'll ask why, right? And be ready with what Misty said. What are the benefits? They're there. They're there. What are the benefits? How is this going to lead to affordable housing preservation, lead to your bills being protected, or your ability to pay your debt, create policy so that building decarb and building electrification is a path to solve these issues that they're struggling with daily, instead of either falling for the other sides, like marketing efforts, which is, this is going to be another burden. Eliminate that message entirely by finding ways to make this the pathway to eliminate existing challenges.
I think that's a perfect way to end, and kind of, I thank you for painting that approach, and the need to really shift and really highlight the benefits for our communities. And yeah, just thank you all for joining us for this panel Q&A, and there's so much rich discussion, and I only wish we had more time for the Q&A, but thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen to just wrap us up here. Okay, today there are some links that were shared today and resources that were shared. These will be posted at the BayREN codes this will be shared at the BayRENcodes.org link. I believe someone from the BayREN team will put this in the chat so that we all have it. And then lastly, we're going to launch a feedback poll for feedback on the forum. We're actually offering a giveaway and really value your feedback on how this event was today. Thank you everyone for joining our BayREN forum and just being part of this conversation, and whether it's through listening or through chat or through the Q&A, we really appreciate that. So please check your email and follow this link. Otherwise, I think it might be launched directly on the screen if I'm not mistaken.